All right, get ready, because on today's deep dive, we're talking all about baby bumps.
Ooh, exciting.
We've got a stack of articles here about why some bumps have their sights set sky high, while others are perfectly happy chilling out down low.
It's a question for the ages.
Right, so get ready to ditch those pregnancy myths and dive into the actual science behind those beautiful bumps. Expert speaker, ready to get our hands dirty.
I am so ready. It's a topic that causes, let's be honest, a bit of a stir.
You're telling me. Okay, before we even get to this whole high and low business, can we talk about what we even mean when we say baby bump? It's more than just a little one kicking back in there, right?
So much more. Think of it more like a team of all-stars working together. You've got the uterus stretching out like,
A superhero.
right, and then there's the amniotic fluid increasing to give the baby that essential cushioning and support.
Okay, I'm already learning. This isn't just about indulging in a little too much pizza, is it?
Not at all. We're talking about some serious science here. Imagine the amniotic fluid as a high-tech swimming pool for the baby, keeping them at the perfect temperature and even boosting their growth.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like a cozy little spa in there.
Totally. And all of this is happening while those abdominal muscles are doing double, even triple duty stretching, strengthening, you name it.
Talk about dedication. It really shows how amazing our bodies are, how adaptable they can be.
100%.
Yeah.
But you've hit on something super important. Everyone's body handles these changes in their own way, and that's a big part of why baby bumps are so unique.
Which brings us to that burning question.
Yeah.
Low bumps versus high bumps, what's the deal? So everyone listening can picture it. How would you describe the visual difference?
Okay, so picture a whole spectrum of baby
Oh,
bump.
that's a good visual.
On one side, you have the low riders hanging out closer to the pubic bone.
Keeping it low key.
Exactly. And they often look a bit rounder, maybe a little more pronounced. And then on the other side, we have the high flyers chilling up near the rib cage.
Living the high life.
Right. They sometimes have a slightly longer or more oval shape.
And that's when those rumors start swirling, right? Low bump, must be a boy. High bump, definitely a girl. We've all heard it, haven't we?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those classic pregnancy myths. And as much as we'd love for it to be true, bump shape just doesn't tell us much about the baby's gender.
So put those gender predicting charts away. The only way to know for sure if it's a bouncing baby boy or a perfect little girl is with an ultrasound.
Science is king.
It is. But that doesn't mean bump position is totally useless as a clue, right? There are some things it might be able to tell us.
You're right. It's not like we can predict the future based on bump shape, but there are some interesting patterns we see with high and low bumps.
All right, spill the tea. Let's start with those low riders. What have you noticed?
One thing we see pretty often is that women who are pregnant with their second, third, even fourth baby tend to carry a bit lower.
Like their bodies have already earned their stripes.
Right. Those incredible abdominal muscles have been through this rodeo before, so they kind of remember what to do.
So they're like, we got this. What about people who are just naturally strong in their core? Do they tend to carry lower too?
They do.
Yeah.
It's almost like they have a bit of a head start in the baby department because their muscles are already strong and able to support all that extra weight.
Makes sense. It's amazing how intuitive our bodies are. Okay, let's talk about those high-flying bumps. What's happening there?
So one of the most common links we see is with first-time pregnancies. Remember how those abdominal muscles have to work overtime to stretch and adapt?
It's not easy growing a human.
Exactly. And for first-timers, those muscles are going through all those changes for the very first time, which can lead to the bump sitting a bit higher as they adjust.
It's like they need a bit more time to adjust to this whole amazing transformation. What about torso length? Does that play a role?
It totally can.
Hmm.
Think about it. If you have a longer torso, you have more space for that bump to grow vertically, which often means a higher bump.
Makes sense. Just want to be crystal clear here. These are just tendencies we see, not hard and fast rules, right?
100%. Every single pregnancy is unique, just like the person experiencing it. Bump position is just one small part of a much bigger, beautiful picture.
Absolutely. And now I know what you're thinking because I'm thinking it too. Does bump position impact labor and delivery?
The age-old question.
The answer is... Well, we'll get to that in just a bit. Stick around because this deep dive is just getting started.
We're back for more baby bump adventures.
We are on a roll, aren't we? Busting those myths left and right and really understanding what makes each bump so special. But before we jump into everyone's favorite topic, labor and delivery, I know there are a ton of questions about bump position and what it all means. Expert speaker, what are expectant parents most curious about? What's keeping them up at night?
You know, one of the biggest worries, especially for first-timers, is this idea that a low bump equals an early arrival.
I bet. Okay, let's just put it out there. Low bump equals early labor. Myth or reality?
Oh, it's a myth for sure. Time to toss that one out with the bathwater. While a low bump sometimes might mean the baby's getting comfy in the pelvis a bit sooner, it's definitely not a reliable sign that labor's about to start.
Babies haven't quite figured out how to read calendars yet, have they?
Nope. They like to do things on their own time. Every baby has their own schedule. And honestly, due dates are more like suggestions, really.
Mm-hmm.
So many things can influence when labor begins, and bump position is just one tiny piece of a very big, very complex puzzle.
Music to my ears.
Hmm.
For anyone out there rocking a low bump, no need to pack your hospital bag just yet. Enjoy those last few weeks, maybe even months. Okay, let's flip the script. What about those high bumps? Is there any truth to the idea that a higher bump means a tougher labor?
Like we've been saying, every birth story is unique. But yeah, there are a few things that might make labor a bit more challenging if you have a higher bump, especially if the baby hasn't made their way down into the pelvis when labor starts.
Okay, I need a visual here. We're talking about a baby basically doing the limbo under the rib cage, right? Why would that make labor trickier?
Basically, if the baby's starting point is higher up, it might take them a bit longer to navigate through the pelvis during labor.
So it's not so much about the bump itself, but more about where the baby is in relation to the pelvis.
Exactly. It's all about angles and descent. Higher starting point equals a slightly longer, windier road to travel.
Got it. So it could potentially make that first stage of labor a little longer, which is already a marathon in itself.
That's right. And a longer first stage can mean more discomfort and fatigue. But it's important to remember, our bodies are designed for this. With the right support, the right prep, the right mindset, it's all manageable.
I love how much you emphasize that support and preparation. Knowledge is power.
100%. And knowing what might be coming can make all the difference in feeling confident and ready, no matter what labor and delivery throws your way.
So true. Speaking of preparation, we've talked a lot about the physical side of bump position. But what about the mental and emotional side of things? It seems like everyone and their mother feels the need to comment on a pregnant person's belly.
Oh, tell me about it. People can't resist a good baby bump. It's like they're magnetically drawn to them.
I know, right? And most of the time, they mean well, but it can still make expectant parents a little uncomfortable, especially if their bump doesn't fit the norm, or if they're already feeling overwhelmed by everything changing in their body. What advice would you give to someone who's dreading those bump encounters?
I always say, remember that you don't owe anyone an explanation or access to your body. If you don't want to be touched, you want to change the subject, you are totally allowed to politely but firmly set those boundaries.
Yes, I love that you said redirect the conversation. Instead of feeling like you have to explain why your bunk is the size it is,
Mhm.
you can always just say something like, gorgeous day, isn't it? Or
Sure.
how about those insert local sports team here?
Exactly. Even a simple, I'm just enjoying this pregnancy journey can work wonders. And if someone's not getting the hint, it's okay to be more direct. It's your body, your bump, your experience.
1,000 times, yes. So important. You mentioned this before, and it really stuck with me. The idea that bumps are kind of seen as both personal and public at the same time.
Right. It's kind of a paradox. You're going through this incredibly personal, intimate experience of growing a human.
Yeah.
But it's also something that, for many women, is impossible to hide. So
Well,
it's like you're constantly on display.
it's like your body becomes a conversation starter, whether you like it or not. And I think that's why it's so important to shift the focus away from the external and back to what's happening inside. Because the truly amazing thing isn't about the size or shape of the bump. It's about the miracle of life growing inside.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
We're about to wrap up part 2 of this baby bump deep dive. But don't worry, we've got one more part to go, where we'll dive even deeper into the roller coaster of pregnancy emotions and how to handle those sometimes awkward bump conversations. And we're back, ready for the final chapter of our baby bump deep dive.
Yes, we've covered so much already.
We have. We talked about the science, debunked some myths, and even got into the nitty-gritty of labor and delivery.
It's been quite the journey.
It really has. But before we wrap things up, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, expert speaker, about those, well, interesting bump encounters people have. You know, the comments, the stares, the whole, like, can I touch your belly thing.
Oh, yeah. That's a common one. I think baby bumps fall into this weird category where they're super personal, but also somehow public.
Right. It's like the moment that bump pops, it's public property. And I've definitely been there trying to figure out how to handle those comments.
It's definitely a skill, especially because most people are coming from a good place. They're just caught up in the excitement of a new baby.
Exactly. But for the person who's actually pregnant, it can feel really intrusive, especially if they're already feeling kind of vulnerable with all these changes going on.
Totally. And that's why setting boundaries is so, so important.
Yes. Okay, let's talk about that. For anyone listening who's maybe dreading those bump encounters, what are some good ways to set boundaries, politely but firmly?
First things first, you don't have to explain anything to anyone. You don't owe anyone access to your body. If you don't want to be touched, or you just want to change the subject, you can absolutely do that.
Yes, redirect the conversation. I love that. So instead of explaining the size of your bump to a random person at the grocery store, you could just be like, what a beautiful day, or even, go, local sports team, go.
Exactly. You could even just say something like, I'm really focused on enjoying this pregnancy right now. And if someone's being really pushy, it's okay to be more direct. This is your body, your bump, your whole experience.
Seriously, own it. I love that. You know, what you said before about bumps being both personal and public really got me thinking.
It is kind of a strange thing, isn't it?
It is. On the one hand, you're literally growing a human, which is so personal and amazing. But then on the other hand, it's something that a lot of people can't hide. So it's like they're on display all the time.
Yeah.
So it's like their bodies become a conversation starter, whether they want it to or not, which is why I think it's even more important to focus on what's happening on the inside, the amazing miracle of life, not just the size or shape of a bump.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I really think if we can all try to be a little more aware of what an amazing personal experience this is, those comments about appearance will start to matter less and less.
Right. Because really, a baby bump isn't just a bump. It represents so much more. It's about the incredible strength of women, the way our bodies are designed to do this amazing thing.
So well said.
This has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much for being here, expert speaker.
Thank you for having me.
And to all of you amazing listeners, thank you for joining us for this baby bump deep dive. Keep celebrating those bumps. We'll see you next time.